Stories about what it means to be human are an age-old concept. We've had stories about robots with human-like intelligence since Eleron in 1872, or even earlier if you want to include man-made creatures like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from 1818. This idea finds its way into modern media in some form or another with varying results. Frontwing's newest visual novel, Atri, My Dear Moments, introduces us to a robot girl, and thus we are taken on a whimsical journey of self-discovery and relatable human interaction.
何かご用でしょうか。だとしたら、顔に乗るのは無礼ですよ。
Atri, My Dear Moments, stars Ikaruga Natsuki, a high schooler with a prosthetic leg who was trying to salvage the works of his late grandmother, an ocean geologist. He may have inherited ownership of her stuff, but he also inherited her massive debt. So he's teamed up with a self-proclaimed collector to get rid of it. The world is in a bad state as parts of it now exist underwater, which means Team Arca succeeded, I bet. I kid. However, under the sea, treasure exists that may help our young protagonist with its debts so he can be on his way. In a routine search, Natsuki finally manages to make it to an underwater warehouse to find a mysterious pod holding a girl. This girl, an android named Atri, was owned by his grandmother, and Natsuki initially plans to sell her for an ungodly amount of money to split with the collector. Like he's actually going to go through with that though. As a visual novel, you'll find very minimal interactivity outside of a couple of choices. These choices ultimately impact whether or not you'll be able to get the true ending, but they are incredibly obvious, so you don't need to worry about that at all. Additionally, this is a Frontwing title, so you can literally just use the progress controls to jump between scenes and choices at the push of a button. Like other Frontwing titles, there are some great menus for players full of convenient options. They're absolutely fantastic in both choice and aesthetic. The options give you full control over how you want to experience the game, and you can have it show Japanese and English text simultaneously if you want to be especially weeby. I'd like to add that this title screams quality through and through. The team didn't skimp on the character illustrations or the multiple backgrounds you'll visit throughout the narrative. The CGs are top class and break up the dialogue scenes brilliantly. If that wasn't enough, there are some needlessly flashy special effects just to drive the scenes home. Atri, My Dear Moments, tells an extremely unorthodox story for the type of visual it stylizes itself as. Whilst technically a romance story, the romance actually takes a back seat for a majority of the story, instead preferring to focus on exploring the identities of the titular android, Atri, and Natsuki. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a voice. But he does get a portrait that is used quite liberally, as well as a multitude of facial expressions. He also gets some really good CGs that focus on him and only him. You know, how many CGs you get of the protagonist's face could probably make for a good litmus test for whether or not a VN protagonist is a self-insert, which Natsuki certainly isn't. Natsuki actually makes for a fascinating protagonist, as many others will leave unkempt lifestyles due to sheer lack of virtue. For Natsuki, it's not for lack of trying. Natsuki's disability, the missing leg, makes it incredibly difficult for him to do many things, even with a prosthetic. Disabled protagonists are a rarity in visual novels, so it's nice to see one who isn't just there for a checkbox. The setup is quite lovely, as you have Natsuki, a boy who relies on a barely functioning prosthetic, in a world that's already fallen apart, developing a relationship with an older modeled android girl who is seeing this new world for the first time. It's a strong foundation for the narrative, but the ease and the effortless way their relationship grows makes for some compelling moments of storytelling. Sure, the story does an excellent job with the two leads, but it doesn't stop there. There's actually a relatively strong supporting cast, and the interactions with them make up the actual bulk of the story. That bulk, however, has one major flaw found in the overall pacing. Many of these plot sequences feel a little more than filler, and there are only so many skits you can put between essential plot points before it can feel tiring. Luckily though, the final beats are absolutely fantastic and make this 15-hour journey quite rewarding.
遅いね。暴れると危ないですよ。
Atri, My Dear Moments is a beautiful visual novel about people trying to figure out how to live in a world that is literally sinking around them. It plays on the environment of a nigh-apocalyptic setting with cautious optimism, defying the angst that would usually permeate tales such as these without just ignoring the traumatic past the protagonist has. It's a solid recommendation for any visual novel fan that wants a hopeful story with a unique delivery. Noisy Pixel is giving Atri, My Dear Moments an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. Noisy Pixels, a group dedicated to bringing you guys the best news, reviews, previews, and more. Please stick around, subscribe, and ring the little bell just to stay up to date on all of our future content.